Good morning to you and welcome to Penn Vicarage on this lovely Friday morning. Great to see you and thank you for joining us this morning. Great to see you today. Remind you, as it's Friday, our services are on at St Bart's and St Anne's this weekend and we'd love to see you. You'd be very, very welcome, either online or in person. You'd be very, very welcome. Now, this morning's reading is something of a toughie, really is. So this morning you're going to need your brains turned up to number 11, your thinking caps on, your flowery tangent trousers on as well. You'll see why in a minute. Here we go, Mark's Gospel, chapter 9, starting to read verse 38, reading through to the end of the chapter. John said to Jesus, "Teacher, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we tried to stop him because he wasn't following us." But Jesus said, "Don't stop him. For no one who does a deed of power in my name will be able soon afterwards to speak evil of me. Whoever is not against us is for us. For truly I tell you, whoever gives you a cup of water to drink because you bear the name of Christ will by no means lose the reward. If any of you put a stumbling block before one of these little ones who believe in me, it'd be better for you if a great millstone were hung around your neck and you were thrown into the sea. If your hand causes you to stumble, cut it off. It's better for you to enter life maimed than to have two hands and go to hell, to the unquenchable fire. And if your foot causes you to stumble, cut it off. For it's better for you to enter life lame than to have 2 feet and to be thrown into hell. And if your eye causes you to stumble, tear it out. It's better for you to enter the kingdom of God with one eye than to have 2 eyes and be thrown into hell, where the worm never dies and the fire is never quenched. For everyone will be salted with fire. Salt is good. But if salt has lost its saltiness, how can you season it? Have salt in yourselves and be at peace with one another." And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Well, this reading was going to come around someday, wasn't it? Try and make some sense of it this morning. I want to start, if I may, by giving you a brief excursus about hell. What is hell all about? Because I have to say this, because unfortunately, many people's ideas of hell has nothing to do with what the Bible says at all. It's more to do with Dante's Inferno, Milton's Paradise Lost, scary firebrand sermons or ghoulish pictures on walls of churches there to try and make people, frighten people into being good, or perhaps giving more money or something like that. What does the Bible actually say? Well, the Bible has 2 places which it calls hell. One is in the Old Testament, a sort of shadowy place of the dead, which King David talks about in the Psalms, a place called Sheol, shadowy place of the dead. And there's this one in the New Testament, which is a place called Gehenna. Now, Gehenna is actually a valley just outside Jerusalem. I've been there. I can genuinely say that I've been to hell and back. There we go. In those days, in the times of Jesus, it was basically an incinerator on the edge of town. It's where they took the city of Jerusalem's rubbish and they burnt it. And as you can imagine, it was on there 24/7, so the fire never went out and the worms never died. As you can imagine, that's what it was. And that is the hell Jesus is talking about this morning. When Jesus talks about hell, uses Gehenna that he's talking about here, and that's what he's referring to in this morning's reading. So now you know what hell's really about. Now, to the reading itself. What's he talking about? Well, I think what he's basically saying is this. The world, and this is as true now as ever been, the world, the media, the world around us would have us believe that following God is somehow boring and dull, and that sin is somehow fun. That's what the world would have us believe, is that sin's what we really want to do, and following life with God is just really boring. And that is the biggest lie in history. Sin, let's make no mistake about this, sin destroys lives. Sin, disobeying God, destroys our relationship with God, it destroys people's lives, it destroys communities' lives, it destroys the world, it destroys other people's. When we do bad stuff, it actually has effect on other people as well. When people drive recklessly, it's often other people that get hurt, isn't it? So actually what Jesus is saying here this morning is that sin is a serious business, and it's really important that we stay close to God. And in those days, if they wanted to keep something fresh, before the days of fridges, they used to put salt on it to keep it pure, stop it going rotten, stop it going off. And that's what Jesus is talking about when he says, have a salt in yourselves. The world may be going rotten around you, but he says to people, keep pure yourself. Keep salt, keep pure yourself. And sometimes drastic measures are required in order to keep us right with God. And when he talked about if your right hand offends you, cut it off, and if your right eye offends you, pluck it out, and all that sort of stuff, he didn't mean it literally. Nobody except possibly a person called Origen in history has ever thought Jesus meant that literally. It's a good job, because if he had done, I'd have lost both hands, both eyes, both feet, both eyes are very, very long with much left of me. Okay, let's be honest about that. He didn't mean it literally. What he did mean, though, is because sin's a serious business and because sin destroys lives, sometimes drastic measures need to be taken in order to keep us right with God. And that's what he's talking about here, is that sin's a serious business. It destroys us, therefore it should be avoided. And our relationship with God is the most important thing in our lives, and we should sometimes have to take drastic measures to keep it right. And that's what he meant when he said, if your right hand offends you, cut it off, and so on. He didn't mean it literally, I'm glad to say. He meant drastic measures are sometimes required to keep us right with God. And to reinforce the point that actually sin has effect on other people as well. That's what he was talking about when he's talking about millstones. You know, if any of you cause one of these little ones astray, it's better for you to have a millstone around his neck and so on. And I think what he means is that sometimes our sin can have an effect on other people. If we go astray, it could help make other people go astray as well, lead other people astray too. So what Jesus is saying here is that we should stay pure. We should have salt in ourselves. We should stay pure, right with God. And whatever's going on in the world, we need to stay pure. That sometimes drastic measures are needed in order to keep us right with God. But also remember the awesome responsibility of making sure that in our lives we don't lead other people astray. And especially church leaders and people that purport to lead people in the Christian faith have to be an awesome responsibility to make sure that we don't lead other people astray too. And that's really what this passage is talking about this morning. The importance of keeping right with God. But just before that, there's an interesting bit also about this. The disciples complain about this other guy who's been casting out demons and so on. And they say to Jesus, we tried to stop him because he wasn't one of us. And Jesus' response is, look, hang on a minute. It's not to do you any harm. You know, if he's not with us, if he's not against us, I'm sure he's with us. And, you know, if he's being kind, he's not likely to turn against you, is he? He's much more likely to be on your side if he's doing the same things that you're doing. And Jesus is basically saying is look, you know, keep right in yourself, but don't worry too much about what other people are doing, you know. If other people are following God, let them do it. But think mostly about keeping yourself right with God. And he comes this wonderful phrase at the end, and he says, have salt in yourselves, but be at peace with one another. Don't look at the sin in other people. Don't point the finger at other people. Just make sure that you keep yourself right with God. At the end of John's Gospel, a couple of people asked Jesus a question. Jesus says, what is that to you? You know, other people, between them and God, actually, it's important that we keep ourselves right with God too, you know. Have salt in yourselves, you know. Sort yourself out. Be at peace with other people too. So, a lot in this very tough reading this morning. I hope it's made some sense. Just to remind you, hell, there are two hells. There's Sheol in the Old Testament, shadowy place of the dead. The hell in the New Testament, that Jesus is Gehenna, which was a rubbish dump, an incinerator on the outskirts of town. That's what Jesus really meant when he was talking about hell. He talks about the importance of keeping right with God, that sin's a serious business, and therefore we need to keep pure, keep salt in ourselves, keep ourselves right with God, and that sometimes drastic measures need to be taken. And that's what he meant when he talked about your right hand offends you, cut it off, and that sort of stuff. He also talks about the awesome responsibility of making sure that we don't lead other people astray, especially either children or new people who are new in the faith. The importance of making sure that we don't lead other people astray. And also when it comes to other people, if other people are doing things with God, then actually let's let them do that. Let's think more about keeping ourselves right and leave other people to God as well. Let's not point the finger at other people. Let's not try and restrict other people in their faith. Let's make sure that we keep ourselves right and leave them to God. I hope that makes sense. Very tough reading this morning. I hope that's made some sense to you. Have a lovely weekend. Hope to see you in church, either online or